last year diverted 120 citizens away from the courts. This way, it gives our judiciary the proper time to deal with more serious offenses and letting the summary convictions being dealt in our community and at the same time being adjudicated in our community. So these programs do cause change in effect, and at the same time, I think it really enables us to really deal with it from our community level, from our eyes, instead of outsiders dealing with matters that do not know our villages or our citizens well or our families well. That particular program I spoke on is a 5-year program, and I want to again express my gratitude for the federal government on 5-year programs versus 1-year programs. They don't work 1-year programs. See, just by the time you get organized, you have to reapply again. So these 5-year programs cause change in effect also. The mediation one, that's a no-brainer for, it's about time, I can say. Thank you very much, Minister Lametti, for supporting that particular program, given that goes with the child welfare bill that's been now passed and moving forward on a devolution of child and family services. It'll help us in mediation to deal with our families. There's always challenges that could arise when it comes to children and families. So this way it gives us the opportunity to deal from a family-to-family issue and bring it right into our backyard, into our own communities, and letting us deal with it by ourselves within our own jurisdictional understanding of what our family wants as priority. So these programs are change makers. There's not a question about it. And we see positive impact. I know the judiciary is very supportive of it, the Crown supportive of it, because it really gives an helping hand to our overcrowded court system as we now have it. So again, I can't say enough of the programs. They're very well orchestrated in the sense that our staff are well versed on it and are moving forward. It also opens the floodgate for us to start talking about the future of policing and other matters. We have high crime ratios in certain villages. We have drug problems, of course, that you see and you read on a daily basis in newspapers. And we're trying to find ways of how do we stop that. And the best way to stop it is by community. The community knows best. And we got to trust in that community, and we find ways to find solutions to get these things resolved. But we've got to find a way to break this cycle, and I think the best way to do it is by transferring programs and services directly to our Métis government, and we'll take better. We know our people better than anybody else, so I think we'll be the best at alleviating and addressing matters that affect our community. So from a standpoint from the Métis government, I can't say enough. And in my background in justice, as I fought for these programs when I was there, I think they're excellent opportunities for us to make change in our communities.
Excellent. Thank you, President Chartrand. And with President Chartrand, he's got a very capable, wonderful group of cabinet ministers, and we have with us, joining us, Minister Lamoureux, and open the floor for her to share her thoughts.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank Elder Linda St. Cyr for her prayer. And I also want to thank the federal government and, of course, yourself, Minister Lamoureux. I'll say your name in French. So the announcement signifies the commitment of a partnership between the Red River Métis government and the federal government to provide support aimed at addressing systemic discrimination and overrepresentation, of course, of the Red River Métis in the justice system in Manitoba. It also signifies the acknowledgement and recognition for the need for Métis distinctions-based programs and services for our Red River Métis citizens who find themselves involved in the criminal justice system. And I think at this point I'll cut off my remarks to this because our president has covered it very, very well. Thank you much.
Thank you, Minister. And if I can just provide some opening remarks myself, looking at the saying, Tanshi. Hello, bonjour. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from Treaty 1 territory and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, the Dene people, and of course, the homeland of the Métis Nation. It is such an honor to be a part of today's announcement with the Honorable David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. It is an honor to be joined by representatives, in particular President Chartrand of the Manitoba Métis Federation, to talk about how we are working with Indigenous peoples to advance reconciliation and in particular transform the relationship between Indigenous people and the justice system. We are doing so in collaboration and partnership with the Métis, First Nations, and Inuit communities, supporting Indigenous-led, culturally appropriate programs and services to provide community members with alternatives to mainstream justice. Tragically, Indigenous peoples continue to be overrepresented in our justice system, and the rates continue to rise. Particularly troubling, Indigenous women now make up half of the population of women incarcerated in federal institutions. Tangible change is needed urgently. Shocking and shameful, for the first time, Indigenous women make up half the female population in Canada's federal prisons. This is an alarming and unacceptable reality that requires a multifaceted approach, one that integrates Indigenous community-based justice, services, and traditional healing methods to support the offender and victim and to restore community health. The Manitoba Métis Federation is a vital partner in these efforts. For more than 2 decades, the Métis Justice Institute has provided a wide range of justice services and programs to support and advocate for the Métis community in the province. It was established back in 2000. Efforts to address systemic discrimination and improve access to justice and fairness in our criminal justice system. Our government is proud to support the Federation's tireless work to create a healthier, vibrant, and safer community. Now please help me in welcoming Minister David Lametti, who will provide more details on today's funding announcement. Merci. Thank you. Merci. Minister Lametti.
Territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Thank you to Elder Linda for starting us off in a good and positive way. Good to see you, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to join Kevin Lamoureux, the MP for Winnipeg North, for this important announcement. In the House of Commons, Kevin is one of our stalwarts, probably has spoken more words in the House of Commons than any other member of Parliament in this and previous sessions, and so it is fitting that he has taken his turn with his thoughts today. Thank you to President Chartrand, Minister Lagimodière, for your strong leadership of this vital organization. We come today together as partners to renew our commitment to supporting culturally appropriate, Indigenous-led, community-based justice services for Manitoba's Métis people. Il s'agit d'un élément essentiel de notre cheminement vers la réconciliation, le but étant de transformer les relations entre les Premières Nations, les Inuits et les Métis et le système de justice. Les peuples autochtones ont subi et continuent de subir des actes individuelle et systématique de racisme et de discrimination à toutes les étapes du processus de justice canadien. Ce qui explique qu'ils soient surreprésentés dans le système de justice pénale en tant que victimes, survivants, accusés et condamnés, ce qui est tragique. As President Chartrand mentioned, and as Kevin Lamoureux has mentioned, the numbers are alarming and they continue to rise. Our government is focused on making fundamental changes to address this and to ensure true justice and equity for Indigenous peoples. One way to achieve this goal is by collaborating with Indigenous peoples to deliver culturally appropriate, community-based justice services. This means supporting organizations that offer vital justice services and a better pathway forward for Indigenous communities. This includes the Federation's Métis Justice Institute. It offers culturally appropriate programs and services that focus on grassroots level justice measures, crime reduction, improved community safety, and healing for individuals, families, and communities. These are complex challenges, and we must address them together in partnership, collaboration, and by investing precisely in Indigenous-led, Indigenous-focused solutions. So that brings me to today's announcement. I am pleased to announce that the Government of Canada is providing funding of more than $1.68 million over 5 years to support the Manitoba Métis Federation's ongoing work to deliver community-based justice programs and to address the overrepresentation of Métis people in the justice system. These funds will help the Federation expand and strengthen its efforts to develop Métis-specific justice programs and services. As President Chartrand hinted, a portion of the funding will support the continued delivery of justice supports and services through the Métis Community Justice Program and the Thompson Community Justice Program. These programs provide community-based alternatives to divert Métis people from the courts and the justice system. Funds will also support the creation of a new Métis mediation service program under the Métis Community Justice Program, as well as to work to develop Métis distinctions-based education and training resources for justice professionals to address systemic racism in the justice system. The Federation will also direct funds towards its work to develop a Red River Métis justice strategy. The strategy aims to meet the unique needs of the Red River Métis through in-depth research, collaboration with elders, knowledge keepers, and other experts, and citizen engagement. It will also help inform the development of something that is in my mandate letter, a National Indigenous Justice Strategy, a strategy that we will work and build together. This funding is provided through Justice Canada's Indigenous Justice Program. It aims to help Indigenous people assume greater responsibility for the administration of justice in their communities, to reflect and include Indigenous values in the justice system, and to decrease victimization, crime, and incarceration amongst Indigenous people. This is part of larger investments our government announced in the 2020 Fall Economic Statement and in Budget 2021 to help address systemic discrimination and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the Canadian justice system. These investments included funding to help implement Gladue principles and increase Indigenous cultural awareness in the justice system across Canada, to help Indigenous families in navigating the family justice system, and to support the development of an Indigenous justice strategy in Canada. Ces investissements s'intègrent aux activités que nous menons pour faire avancer la réconciliation avec les peuples autochtones au Canada et répondre aux appels à l'action de la Commission de vérité et réconciliation, ainsi qu'aux appels à la justice de l'enquête nationale sur les femmes et filles autochtones disparues et assassinées. Ces investissements appuient également nos objectifs dans le cadre de la voie fédérale concernant les femmes, les filles et les personnes de LGBTQIA+, autochtones disparus et assassinés, dans le but de mettre en place un système judiciaire plus inclusif et plus représentatif. Thank you again, Kevin, for your participation today. Thank you, President Chartrand, Minister Lagimodière, Elder Linda, and to everyone involved with the Federation. True honor to work with you to build a better, healthier, more just future for Métis and indeed all Indigenous peoples in Canada. Merci. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister Lametti, for many of your thoughts, especially your kind words, and obviously your sense of commitment to Indigenous people, and today with the Manitoba Métis Federation. At this time, what I'd like to do is to open the floor for questions. A question would ask that members from the media to raise their hand in order to get recognized, and you'll have a question with a follow-up sup. It's helpful, but not essential. The individuals can answer depending on the question as posed. So if there's any questions, just put a show of hand. And we have SRC. If you go ahead with the question.
Oui, bonjour, ma question, c'est Jérémy Bergeron du réseau d'information à Winnipeg. Ma question pour M. Lametti, 5 millions sur 5 ans, c'est quoi? Même pas 300 000 $ par année. Est-ce que c'est vraiment une somme considérable pour s'attaquer à la surreprésentation des Métis dans notre système de justice?
Je dirais que vous avez entendu le président Chartrand au début. C'est un investissement important pour la Fédération des Métis au Manitoba. Mais c'est important aussi globalement. Ce n'est qu'une partie des investissements qu'on est en train de faire pour s'attaquer au racisme systémique et la sous-représentation des peuples autochtones dans le système judiciaire. J'ai un projet de loi, C5, qui va éliminer certaines peines minimales et va ça fait partie de l'ensemble des choses que nous sommes en train de faire. Il faut aussi ajouter que, comme le président Chartrand a souligné, ce sont des programmes qui marchent très, très bien, même s'ils ne coûtent pas très, très cher. Les solutions de base, donc les solutions sur le terrain, comme les centres de justice communautaire qu'on envisage dans ce projet, ils fonctionnent très, très bien pour encadrer les personnes qui sont venues en contact avec le système de justice. Et ça marche très, très bien ici avec le Métis. On a d'autres projets en Colombie-Britannique, ailleurs, à travers le Canada. Et je peux vous dire que ça fonctionne très, très bien et d'une façon aussi très efficace.
Merci beaucoup. My second question is maybe for someone from the Federation. So tell me, why is it important to get this money? What will we do concretely, like with the money that we will get? How it will be useful to help the overrepresentation of Métis people in the justice system in Manitoba?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for asking me in English. I am bilingual, but I speak Ojibwe Soto as my second language, actually my first language, and so does Gelida. But let me answer the question this way. Right now, it's costing the taxpayer, including us as a Métis, to have a individual in federal prisons about $115,000 a year person. That are being expended by not trying to deal with the matter right at the beginning. Cut off the legs as soon as you can, because this is what this whole devolution is all about, getting us to have control at the community level, getting the families to be involved, getting the community to be involved, and hopefully stopping the trend settings we see. The system has shown us that they start off with the summary convictions, the smaller crimes, and then they graduate to the bigger crimes if there's not a way to find alternatives or find solutions before they get to the next level. That's when the costs start to rise. We're finding also that the courts are overburdened with so many of these cases that should not be in the courts. They should actually be dealt with from what we're now describing as mediation, describing as alternative systems to the courts of being held in that degree that we adjudicate them ourselves at the community level. We give the sentencing we feel is best appropriate, and sometimes it's an apology to the individual instead of trying to say, well, we'll give you probation, we'll give you a fine, we'll give you that. We're trying to find alternatives that will really have an impact where the healing can take place between the crime committed or the action committed and the family that received the blunt of that situation, and find a way to calm it, because it doesn't end there. People understand it. You go to court, you get charged with a fine and probation. It doesn't end there. When they get back to the village, that hostility is still now based between the two families, and it resonates sometimes to something more serious. So alternative ways is the way to go. Definitely, it shows that it's successful if given the right tools, and one for sure is resources. Secondly is getting the belief in it. Our government, the Métis Red River government, has been experienced, lots of experience in this field, and we know very well they work. So the opportunity now is for us to really explore and push these programs even vast. Right now, it's only 4 regions in the province. I want to expand it the entire province of Manitoba. So I'm looking forward to the growth of this program and it being, as I said, a change maker and a financial saver.
Thank you, David, Minister. Are there any other questions from members of the media? We're going to Brett Forrester.
Hello. Data on Métis incarceration rates in Manitoba remains sparse despite the broader availability of Indigenous incarceration rates overall. So I'm wondering if President Chartrand, you could shine some light on that issue. Métis versus First Nations.
Well, this is something, Brett, thank you for the question. It's a very good question. This is something we've been battling even the days when I used to work for the Department of Justice, and that's now, I've been here 25 years, so that's 35 years in totality. We've been battling with trying to get this data achieved and accomplished between both the federal and provincial government. Of course, provincial government on summary offenses, that's their jurisdiction. And it's been a challenge. No one seems to want to collect the data. There seems to be a shift now finally happening in dialogue with the province. We're hoping that that collection of data would be contemplated both on provincial and federal prisons and jails and courts. Because in order for us to do a proper analysis, we need to wait. We do know, Brett, from experience, from word of mouth, from where we know the offense or we read about it. We have a partnership with the RCMP. Any offense that's really occurring in our villages is sent to us. So we know the community, we know the citizens, we know that they're Métis citizens. So the data itself is not specifically kept, and it's a guessing game between how much more of the Indigenous numbers you see, how much they make up Métis, how much they make First Nations. But we do know this, Brett, the crime rate has been rising, drug use has been increasing, and more or less, not even forgetting cocaine or cannabis or things of that nature. We see it now in prescription pills where crimes are being committed for accessing Tylenol 3s. And so, and it's getting to be a dangerous environment for our senior citizens in our community. So people are getting addicted to prescription pills, and it's causing a great harm in our community. So we don't know the ratio, but we definitely know there's a crime concern in our villages right now that's starting to grow.
Thank you for that. And my follow-up question is for the minister. Last year, the correctional investigator called the over-incarceration of Indigenous people one of Canada's most pressing human rights issues. What do you say to those who say your government isn't doing nearly enough to reverse the trend?
Well, I would say look at the record. I have Bill C5. It's now in front of the Senate, which is one major part of the puzzle in terms of attacking the over-incarceration of Indigenous and other racialized peoples in the criminal justice system. That's going to eliminate around 20 minimum mandatory penalties, but importantly, it's going to eliminate the drug offenses, which have a disproportionate are disproportionately a factor in the overrepresentation. And I've used this example before, the Indigenous mother who is perhaps selling some prescription drugs in order to keep on the table and gets charged with trafficking. That's not the kind of trafficking that it requires a long sentence. We need serious traffic and resources to be used on serious trafficking offenses. That's not one of them, and this could be addressed with a conditional sentence order. That's part of it. These kinds of investments, rebuilding Indigenous justice systems across Canada, working with Indigenous peoples, targeted programs for community justice to divert people from the criminal justice program. All of this is part of it. We're hopefully moving forward on a miscarriage of justice commission or a wrongful convictions commission, which also has a disproportionate impact on Indigenous people across Canada. So there are a number of things that are ongoing, within my ministry, and I think that we are trying to attack this very serious problem. We accept that it's a serious problem, and we will, by the time, hopefully within a few years, we'll begin to see a real turnaround.
Thank you, Minister. Now, we had scheduled for a 2 o'clock end. So I see that is it Jeremy?
Yeah, can I ask one last question? Do you mind? Because we're on the two recordings.
Yeah,
last question for the Federation as well. So if I understand that the crime rate has been rising, so is it concerning to you? Do we have to put those program in place? Is it more important to have those programs while we see that the crime rate is still rising in the population?
Yeah, for sure. The programs will truly become effective if all governments are involved. The province has jurisdiction here when it comes to summary convictions. We need the Crown to refer them to us. They do refer last year 117, which we dealt with ourselves through our own judiciary process. That really alleviates the court system with more room for the judiciary to deal with the bigger, much larger indictable offenses instead of spending time on these summary convictions. But what you do need to look at is that the economy has an effect on us. There's a whole circle of issues that are causing this chain of reaction of more crime. And we need to figure out how do we start changing that by putting in programs that'll give hope and hopefully opportunity. Once you start creating hope and opportunity, maybe you can get our young people to start looking that there is a chance, there's a way out. There's just, don't give up yet, and start turning to some giving up and start taking pills and then losing your future. And we do know there's a graduation process. Summary leads to indictable. A lot of it, you'll see the graduation from the child welfare system to the youth centers, and then moving on to the provincial jails and the federal jails. That is a growing trend that everybody knows. The data shows that evidence. So we got to cut it off its legs in the best way we know how. And an elder told me this once at a gathering. I asked the question quite a number of years ago. We wrote a book on justice systems, and one of the issues we raised is that how was crime kept so minimal before all this interaction with so many factors of the justice system? How did you keep control in your communities? He said the families kept control. The families kept the ability to make sure that the matters were dealt with in the community. We went and dealt with it. In the old days, used to bring you out in front of the entire community, and if you stole something, they'd say, Kevin Lamoureux's a thief 3 times. Kevin Lamoureux's a thief. Kevin Lamoureux's a thief, in front of the entire village. And because we're so proud, our people are so proud of who we are and our name, that it would hurt not only the person, the entire family. So the entire family would hold this person accountable now for damaging the name and reputation of that family. So it kept control. And we need to bring it back to the communities. And this is what these programs are leading to. I think we just need to expand them even bigger and explore a little bit more and give us that opportunity to start handling our own affairs. And I think it'll make a lot of change. And we are a government already. We signed a July 6th agreement with Canada. And so all we need now is a transition of more and more of these opportunities coming in. As I said, that's why I commend these programs. I know they work. They've proven they work. All we need to do is continue to ensure that these programs are explored and expanded even more.
That is unfortunately all the time we have for today. If there are no more questions, we'd like to wrap things up. Thank you, Mercy, all very much for participating in today's press conference. If you have any further questions about today's announcement, you can please contact the Department of Justice Media Relations at media@justice.gc.ca. There is a release that has also gone out. And at this time, I would ask if we could have Elder Linda, if I could please ask you to officially close the event.
Thank you. Please join me. Thank you, Creator, for your goodness and your faithfulness. You gave us this wonderful day to enjoy. You